Hi, my name is Luke Blackburn, and welcome to It's Still Here. This is a new video podcast, I guess you could call it. Really, it's an attempt to highlight my own personal journey of trying to really understand at a much deeper level who I am, how do I fit within the world around me, and really try to just understand how to live the best life here on Earth. This is the introduction video. I'd like to quickly tell you a bit of a backstory about myself, and then give you a little bit of insight into sort of what to expect in the coming weeks, how we're going to sort of unroll this thing, and hopefully, how it could potentially, benefit you if you're interested. So, for myself, about 15, 16 months ago, something very traumatic happened in my life. My dad passed away. And obviously it was very traumatic, painful for myself and my family. It was sort of a whirlwind of a couple months. It was pretty unexpected. And on the other side, 3-4 months down the road after my dad passed, I decided to seek out help of a therapist. Now, this was the second time I have gone to therapy as an adult. The first one was more about helping myself get unstuck. I felt like I was trying to do a lot of things, things weren't moving in the way that I was hoping. I had been living in South America for 4 years. I had just moved back to the United States. I was living in St. Louis. I had a new job, I had to reconnect with old friends and build sort of a new network. Had a lot of ideas and things of what I wanted to do, but just things weren't working out. So I went to this therapist at the time to try to help myself get over those things. But I knew at the time that there was a lot that I needed to work on internally, but I was not willing or ready to start to share and be honest with both myself and a therapist to actually deal with some of those things. So this time, for whatever reason, I was basically forced by myself to come to terms that this is a personal decision, but I said, hey, there's really no point in living a life if I'm not going to be honest with myself about that life and where I want to go with that life. So that was a heavy thing to sort of, to accept. But when I did accept it, I said, okay, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to go all the way. What that means, I didn't quite know at the time. I just knew that I was willing to go through the process, and I was willing to just sort of lay down the masks, the armor that I've had built up over the years, and there was a lot, and try to really, truly, for the first time, be open with myself, be open with a complete stranger who obviously was a therapist, and again, go all the way, relearn who I was, deal with the stuff that I knew I had to deal with. And I knew that there was going to be quite a few curveballs throughout the way that I was going to have to deal with. So I started on that little journey. I found a local therapist here in St. Louis. I started doing one-on-one therapy, and then I moved to, he invited me to do group therapy, which certainly was not on my radar when I first signed up. But again, I told myself I was going to go all the way, and I did the 10-week group therapy as well as the individual one-on-one therapy. And it certainly was a game changer for me. Probably the biggest takeaway was just how much stuff I did need to try to go back and deal with. There's a concept of, childhood trauma, where you don't have to be abused or unloved. You can be a child who is provided for, loved, and has a good support system, and you can still have childhood trauma. You can still have things that happen to you that somehow just didn't get resolved, and they're still affecting us and myself as adults. So I was surprised to learn just how much of that stuff I needed to, first accept, bring up and talk about, get it out. And it was a fantastic process. And just that was incredibly, incredibly helpful. But after the 10 weeks of the group therapy, we sort of, we're done. And I sort of asked myself, what's next? And I still didn't feel like I knew myself. A part of that whole therapeutic process was partly was realizing that most of my life I had sort of been a people pleaser, and I realized that a lot of the decisions that I had made in my life, a lot of the things that I decided to do with my time, and even down to how much, like who I was trying to be or how I was acting, was largely to serve other people and try to make other people happy. That was certainly painful to accept, but again, I was just happy with knowing the truth. So I sort of stomached that and said, okay, well, if my whole life I've been trying to do something for other people or pretend like I'm something that I'm not, then what or who am I? And that question, when you take it very seriously, can lead you in a lot of different directions. For me, sort of the first place I started to look was my traditional faith tradition, which is Christian, Protestant, not non-Catholic. And I started to sort of go back, rereading, thinking about sort of the central tenets of what that's all about again, trying to take in that information through other people's viewpoints and through other people's words. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and through that process, I tried to sort of wear those clothes again. I wanted to feel what worked now, what doesn't work now, what felt like it could work, what felt like it needed more exploration, what felt just totally like no more, never doing that again. So I started, again, figuring things out with what I was comfortable with, at least in the past. My dad was a pastor. My uncle's a pastor. My grandfathers were pastors. So I come from a very religious world, and it didn't always make sense to me. So again, I had to go back and sort of figure out what does work now. Now that I'm sort of starting at a new baseline, let's start to add to it, as opposed to just shoot in the dark. So I was doing that for a while, and then I was introduced to a concept, or I'm not even sure if you'd call it a concept, but the idea of mysticism. Now, mysticism might sound kind of weird, and it certainly can be kind of weird. But the idea is that mystics, and by the way, pretty much every religious tradition has a branch of mystics or mysticism. And at least in the Christian tradition, these people, they focused more on lived experience of the religion, more so than the dogmas and the rules and the traditions that had sort of sprung up around it. They were they cared more about getting in there and putting those things to practice in their own life, and seeing what worked, what didn't work, and where to go from there. And they were explorers. And so I started taking a closer look at that. Started with the sort of older, ancient ones throughout the millennia. Then I transitioned to the more modern ones. A couple of their names would be Anthony Bourgeot, Richard Rohr, and others. And they introduced me to a lot of what you would call, I guess, Eastern ideas. Certainly things like non-duality, different understandings of true self versus false self. So previously, that was sort of all taboo growing up. I wasn't allowed to look into much Eastern religion or concepts or ideas. I was told, it was bad stuff. But the deeper I sort of went into it, the deeper it just sort of felt actually true. It felt like it was, wow, this kind of stuff makes a lot of sense. And then, along that path, I was introduced to an idea of Sophia Perennis, which I guess it's loosely translated as perennial philosophy, which is an idea that actually a lot of the world religions that we have recorded history of, there's common themes and threads throughout those religions and practices that sort of point to an ultimate truth about reality, about consciousness, about the human experience. And again, that was all very interesting for me. So I went deeper. Was trying to just read and listen to as much as I could. And again, just trying things on, experiencing them, seeing what fit, seeing what didn't fit, purely through the lens of my own experience, as opposed to what someone told me in the past was good or bad, without having to worry about what other people would be, if other people would be, happy or sad or disappointed or excited for me. This was a personal journey that I wanted to do on my own to try to, again, figure out who I was, how it all fit together, and what I wanted to do next. So it certainly was, it was a transformational experience. But at the same time, I'm still very much like on the beginner track. It's such a vast space to go into, trying to get bits and pieces of various religions and worldviews that are sometimes thousands and thousands of years old. But I can tell you that even though I'm still very early in the experience, it has been transformational. My life has benefited. I feel like I do understand myself much, much better. I feel like I understand other humans in a way that I never could have imagined before. I understand the nature of reality, even consciousness, the world around me. All of these things are coming into focus in a way that I never would have imagined before. And what I want to do is I want to share that with you because why wouldn't I? It's a absolutely incredible gift that I feel like I've been given, and I want to share that because if I would have been able to learn some of these things if I would have paid attention at 21 years old or 25 or even 30 years old. I'm 37 now. I just think how much better my life could have, how much better, fuller, richer, more alive my life could have been if I would have been able to access some of these things. And for whatever reason, it feels like they're hidden from the Western world, or at least we're just not wanting to talk about them, or whatever it is. The good news is it's accessible to us. And like I said, this video series is my attempt to share some of these things. If we get into it and some of these things, if you try them on and they feel good, then I would encourage you to go deeper. Do your own study, do your own analysis of them, go deeper. If they don't, then that's okay. What's going to work for me may not work for you, and that's okay. But I think we can both, appreciate each other for going down the path, and we can cheer each other on as we are constantly seeking and going, trying to find out, again, who we are, how do we relate to the world, how do we reduce our suffering, and how do we hopefully improve the world around us in the process. Yeah, so that's the background of what this is all about. In terms of how it's going to work, I don't have a frequency in mind of when I want to release videos. It would be nice to try to do at least maybe one per week, but I'm not going to hold myself to that necessarily. But what's going to happen is I'm probably going to post in the description a text that kind of gives you a bit of a summary of, and maybe even fills in some of the gaps of these videos. I would love to be able to just sit here and talk to you like this video has been, and not have to do a lot of editing. And if I'm able to do that, these texts, summaries, they're going to help, like I said, maybe fill in some of the gaps that I may have missed just live and in the moment. So definitely check that out if you're interested in getting the summary just in word form as well. I really want this to be an interactive experience. I'm doing my own thing, reading, learning, trying things on, experiencing them. But I would love to hear if anybody would like to share. I would love to hear your experience as well, because I think it can be so much more rich and vivid if we can sort of do this together and share as a group, as one-on-one, whatever it may be. So yeah, if there's things you want to talk about, how they say, drop it in the comments. You could send me a direct message, whichever way. I'll probably put my email down there as well, just so if anybody wants to send me an email, that's accessible to you as well. Let's see. I think the first things we're probably going to talk about will be understanding the nature of like mind movements, how we have all this mental noise, this like chatter in the back of our minds, and it's hard to control. You might not even know it's there just because it's always there. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we create narratives and stories in our minds around the things that happen to us, and how that actually leads to a lot more suffering than not doing that, and how we can avoid doing those things. Those are probably the two that I have certainly on my mind and I'm ready to talk about. I want it to start slow and sort of build up. There's no race here. And I think it's going to be important for the people who have no introduction into this stuff. It's going to be important to start slow. I can even post a list of books and things and podcasts that I've listened to that have helped. Maybe a little resource list. But yeah, I think that'll do it here for this intro video. So excited. Just amazing what life has in store for us. Never would have really envisioned myself starting something like this, but here I am, and it feels good. And I certainly hope for those that find it interesting, I hope it will help you move your life forward, and I hope it'll bring you peace and less suffering and better understanding of yourself and the world around you, all these good things. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.